Eros and Psyche, Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Meanwhile the two sisters were waiting in a frenzy of impatience to know whether success had crowned their evil plot. If the doubt they had planted in Psyche's breast had borne fruit, and she had dared to disobey her lord, they knew full well that all her happiness would have vanished like a dream. Yet, fearing the anger of him whom the winds of heaven obeyed, they dared not trust themselves to Zephyr, who had carried them down before. So they wandered restlessly from room to room, and peered from the windows, hoping that Psyche in her misery would come to them and beg for succor in her evil plight. There was nothing they would have loved better than to spurn her from their doors and taunt her on the retribution which had fallen on her vanity. But all day long they waited, and yet she came not, so that at length they parted and went each one to her couch. But the night was hot and sultry, and the eldest sister lay on her bed and tossed restlessly from side to side, and could not sleep. At length she went to the casement and drew aside the curtain and looked out on the starry night, and when she had cooled her burning brow she went back to her couch. Just as she was about to fall asleep she felt a shadow pass between her and the light from the window, and she opened her eyes, and her heart beat fast. For straight in the path of the moonbeams stood Eros, the great god of love, and his wings stood out black against the starlit sky as he leant on his golden bow. Though his face was dark in the shadow, his eyes seemed to pierce through to her heart as she lay still and trembling with fear. But he spoke softly to her with false, honeyed words. "Lady, thy sister Psyche, whom I chose out from the daughters of men, hath proved false and untrue, and lo! Now I turn my love to thee. Come thou in her stead and be mistress in my palace halls, and I will give thee immortality. Lo! Even now Zephyr awaits thee on the mountain top to bear thee away to my home." So saying, he faded from her sight. Her wicked heart was filled with joy when she heard of Psyche's fall, and she rose up in the dead of night and put on her gayest robe and brightest gems. Without so much as a look on the prince her husband she went out to the mountain top. There she stood alone, and called softly to Zephyr. O Zephyr, O fair west wind, waft me away to my love." Without waiting she threw herself boldly down. But the air gave way beneath her, and with a terrible cry she fell faster and faster, down, down, to the gulf below, and was dashed to pieces on the rocks. And from the four quarters of heaven the vultures gathered and fed upon her flesh. As for the second sister, to her, too, the god appeared and spoke false honeyed words, and she too went forth alone. And in the morning her bones lay gleaming white beside her sisters on the rocks below.